Hi everybody, welcome to Season 6, Episode 10 of The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry Podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, Chairman and Owner of Peterborough United. Now first, before we start, I want to say thank you again last week to Mark Stott for joining us on the podcast. It's gone down really well. I think it's the most downloaded and viewed episode of the season so far.
Fantastic.
So, I think if there's anybody that you want Darragh to dig into his black book or his WhatsApp chat for, send us some suggestions.
Yeah, I speak to the owners quite a bit. We've got like an owners call on Thursday, so I'm intrigued. I'm going to try and get Sharon from Bolton on. I think she's a really intelligent, lady. I'd love to get her thoughts, on owning a big club and whatever else. So I'm going to ask her to break rank and come on. You know what I mean? Because the one thing I think, what we can give all owners, and I've always said this, is of course we're going to be honest and we're not going to hold back, but we're going to give them the respect because they've got an owner that knows what they go through when it's good, bad and different or whatever else. So I think Mark was surprised at how well it went. He's a natural. And I'd said that to him, come on, have a bit of fun, be yourself, because I knew, having spent time dealing with him, talking to him, that it would be a home run. So that was really easy, you know what I mean? And so I'm hoping from that, he was like, oh, that was actually cool.
There's something to be said for showing the human side. Like, as supporters, we don't necessarily see that, and oftentimes owners, chairmen, they kind of
take money away.
They're afraid of kind of sharing that because they want things to be used against them.
Take money away. There's no difference between Mark, any of these owners, me, to the common fan. Like, yes, we all have a few quid or we've had a decent lifestyle and whatever else, but we're all, the same. Put us in a pub, put us in a bar. The only person different would be the champagne socialist Gary Neville, you know what I mean? Who's basically like, I saw all the stuff about that and I had to make a comment. Like Simon Jordan capped it beautifully yesterday. I spent 4.5 years through COVID and everything else listening to him on Twitter because he follows me, I follow him. He probably won't follow off what I say, telling us that, the Conservatives were evil, the Labour government were going to change everything, you know what I mean? And driving it down our throats. And he got his wish. He's got this magnificent Labour government in power, basically taking out every good business ounce the UK ever had. And I'm sure higher taxes are coming and that's going to be great for football clubs. But, and here he is on video basically going on about it's not left or right, but 4 years you've spent basically ramming the left down our throat. And then basically you've that horrific situation where, Jewish people lost their lives to an Islamic fundamentalist lunatic. Do you know what I mean? And you got all this migration stuff going on. And people feel like their daughters couldn't walk past certain hotels and all that stuff's going on, and it's a very tense situation in the UK, and that's really about not having safe borders. It comes down to that, and me and you disagree on that, whatever else, but I feel we have safe borders now in America. But you got all that going on in the UK, and he's thrown out a video basically, and I know the headlines where he's blaming middle-aged white men. He didn't. But all he wanted to do was basically throw it in together and talk about middle-aged white men with Union Jack flags. He started talking about how sorry he was about those poor people who lost their lives, and the rise of anti-Semitism is horrific in the UK. And there is a lot of, obviously, Islamic fundamentalism going on. You see that with some of the things that do happen, and we have to call it what it is. But here he is talking about people who work on his building site and ripping down a Union Jack. And I'm about to do my US citizenship. My kids have done it. My wife's done it. And they've all proudly stood there with their flags. Mm-hmm. I live in a very wealthy area. It's a gated community. You wouldn't think there's American flags everywhere. I don't understand why people are so frightened of being proud of the country they're from. I don't get it.
America's a very different, America has always been very proud of flying the flag, hasn't it?
You watch the NFL games and they're like, there's tears in people's eyes listening to the national anthem. It's pride, and nationalism is suddenly is thrown in with racism, and it's okay to be nationalist in I'm proud of my country, I'm proud of where I'm from. And all of a sudden, because of what's going on in the UK and whatever, the mere mention of Union Jack has people run into their racist dictionary every single day. And for him to come out and somebody who lives in a very wealthy neighborhood, who probably has private gates, who probably has his children, don't walk in those areas and don't deal with what normal people deal with, but to actually go out and hammer the people who work for you, and whatever else. God knows how his building sites are going right now and all his projects. So he's very fortunate the position he's in. I would say to him, And I've stopped, going on social media because I'm frightened of I'll probably get arrested if I landed in the UK for the stuff I'd say, because that's the way the UK is now. But my advice to him would be is stick to football, right? Stick to sports, because we heard him for 4 years. Then he left Twitter to go to Blue Sky, which is a liberal favourite place to go to. And
I didn't even decamp to Blue Sky.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You stayed strong. But he basically ran away over there. 4 years, all I ever saw was his tweets every day. Him and Jamie Carragher, who I love, he was the same, just constant tweets. Now they're really quiet. Now there's nothing. Like when things aren't working and things have gone the other way, you don't hear from them. And that's why I've always said, like, be consistent with your message. Don't go hide. But he's gone and hid. But to put up a video, a few days after those people lost their lives and to talk about that subject was so tone deaf. I was almost cringing for him. I don't agree with people ringing up Sky and asking them to be fired, because I don't believe in all of that. I think that's a load of bullshit. That, at the end of the day, but if he keeps mixing that all the time, he's going to put people off, and he will find people will switch off. So, stop that. Like, be the champagne socialist, be the mayor of Manchester, be whatever you want. But like, at the end of the day, don't be tone deaf. And what you put tone deaf.
Sorry, do you think that core of the message though was about division? Like we're all immediately
the liberal in use straight away takes the word division, because that's a favourite use of everyone on the left, and that's a what about.
That's what I feel.
I get it. It's both sides, and it's this, that, whatever, and it's dead. Well, it's not both sides. One side's trying to kill loads of our side all the time. That's all that's happened recently. And I've had this row with friends of mine. You know what I mean? The Charlie Kirk thing wasn't just like in a vacuum. And yes, I get that a few people have been like on the other side, have had this go on, but it's mainly our president was nearly assassinated. A big talker for the right was basically killed, on a college campus. Let's forget the whataboutism. Let's stop talking about both sides. We can all see it from what it is. Let's talk about the UK. You can talk about division and use words like divisive and everything else, but that just basically ignores the actual problem. And the problem is migration. And the problem is that people don't feel safe anymore. And the problem is that you've got a rise of anti-Semitism. It ain't the far right. It's anti-Semitism. And let's call it what it is. So, and particularly on a day like today, for what happened 2 years ago, and I'm Irish, and most Irish people hate me talking like that. And I don't want to get political on our podcast, but the reality is Gary Neville's tone deaf. So by all means, put a video out and say you're horrified by it and then move on. Don't turn it into, as you've just used the word, divisive, and the country's divided and da-da-da-da-da. But really, it's a bunch of middle-aged white men and their Union Jacks. It's not. So, and that's the mistake.
It's a lot deeper than that.
That's the mistake the left's making at the moment. They keep throwing it on. It's middle-aged white men, basically with Union Jacks. It's not. Go and look at the people that go to London and go on those things, whatever. There's women, there's children, there's families. It ain't just a bunch of bald, white, middle-aged white men. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a middle-aged white man, and there's nothing wrong with having a Union Jack outside your house. And I'll always stick by that. So, use the word divisive all you want. Celebrities need to stop with their megaphone talking shite, and it is diarrhea. And at the end of the day, let's see how that goes for you. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Next on This Week in Politics. So let's bring it back to football. But before we go into our weeks, I did want to bring up Russell Martin. So Russell Martin was sacked. I mean, are we going too far in terms of, if you need a police escort, there's something wrong.
Yes. And again, let me deal with that right now. Absolutely. Like, belittle your manager, put your flags up, not want a manager be popular, boo a manager, tell him he's getting sacked in the morning. But to make someone feel unsafe, to make someone need a police escort, I get it. Rangers fans are frustrated. It's probably the most open season that league's had for years. Celtic aren't as strong. So it's been a disaster for Russ. I'm very surprised. I didn't think it would take this long. For whatever reason, it hasn't fitted from day one. I don't know his history with Rangers, but he wasn't a popular hire. They swung and they missed. And now, obviously, he stepped down. And I was speaking to my gaffer about this earlier, because we both know Russ. And to see those scenes and to see him getting escorted, we were saying, where's his staff? Where his staff hiding on the bus or something? Like, I felt for him. So, look, he's gone now. Leave him alone. Leave his family alone. It was a mistake. It didn't work out. Rangers are going to remedy that mistake and hire someone else. It's obviously a very tough place to manage, like in Scotland. My God. But the day your manager needs a police escort, like away from a stadium, like this is where, and we want to forget about politics. Like, this is where the world's gone mad. I get passion. I get anger. I get not hatred. I get all those things. But to actually make a manager feel unsafe, like we have to like give our heads a wobble. It's like, yeah.
Kind of what changed since COVID. I mean, not that it didn't exist before COVID.
But Phil, I just think there's so many angry people nowadays, and that is, and whatever reason that's happened, just people are angry in general. And yes, since COVID, we've seen that happen, and people have like not doing as well financially and not doing as well, whatever way they're feeling, and maybe social media is to blame, all those things. But for a football manager to be escorted by the police, my stomach churns. It doesn't sit well with me. I dislike people, but I would never celebrate anybody's downfall. I would never say, I'm not a fan of your Democrats that you vote for. But if I woke up tomorrow and somebody was hurt or shot, well, I'd be horrified. I wouldn't be dancing on their grave. I'd be horrified. And I'm just like, we need to give our head a wobble. So look, for Russell, wish him and his family well. He obviously needs to take a break. I would say to him, go get a haircut. Like I do look at him and go, Russ, what you doing? Every time I see an interview, like, managers, go get a haircut, like, get yourself rested, go on holiday with your lovely family, reboot. He'll get another shot.
He'll be okay, won't it?
Perspective. He'll be fine. He'll come back and whatever else. The next project for him has got to be the right project. So a lot of managers have lost their jobs. I mean, I've just seen it, like, again, was it today? Watford manager gone.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that today.
Steve Bruce is gone. Luton fired their manager. Jesus, they've won over half of their games. I mean,
they were.
A lot.
Maybe. And it's actually ironic when you look at if Matt Bloomfield had stayed at Wycombe, perhaps where Wycombe would have gone. And then look at Wycombe, where Wycombe are now. They just fired their manager. He went into Luton. He's just been fired. I mean, it just shows that there's no sure thing, is there?
There's no sure thing, and that's the game we're in. And now it is sacking season, and I get it. Brucey got fired from Blackpool. Everyone's losing their jobs. Now is the time. But you're right. Yeah, like if he'd stayed, but you can't turn Luton down at the time. They were in the champ. They'd come down from the Prem. They got
the money from the payments, parachute payments.
Barry's made the point to me every time. When I first hired Darren Ferguson, I always remember Baz sitting there with Darren, and Darren was like 36, and he said, just one thing, I'm going to give you advice, because I've been a manager. You are guaranteed to get the sack. Every manager, it's the only job in the world where you are guaranteed to get the sack. Very few managers do not get the sack. Even the most famous ones in the world have had the sack. Like, that's the industry we're in.
That's going to be a pretty intimidating first interview to have Barry Fry giving you advice.
But he's trying to do him a favor, and tell him the truth. Like, as much as you're like the next big thing and you're flying and you're doing well, and, the Luton manager was probably the next big thing at Wycombe, and, everything's great, and Russell the same, you are going to have bad moments. You're going to get sacked, and it's how you handle the adversity and come back from that. So that's just a given. No matter, right now, everyone's high on you. In 6 months' time or in 6 results' time, suddenly they're not hiring you anymore. That is our game, my friend. This is the game we're all in. It's mental. It's mental. Like, if you're a manager, for whatever reason, lost 7 games in a row, your owner, more than me, would be inclined to sack him, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Well, honestly, as we come to kind of the weekend, I wasn't sure if today would be a post-mortem on, given the fact that we've talked about other managers losing their jobs in and around you for results that have been better than what your results are this season. I didn't know how far the patience would go, as you're seeing that. So I wondered, is that something that is in, you've been weighing up in your mind about how safe your manager is?
And I've got to be very careful, because unfortunately you've got Alan Swan, we've got to maybe start putting our podcast out on a Friday, because obviously he takes a lot of stuff from this and it's headlines galore, on a Wednesday or a Thursday or whenever it might be, or, you listen to it. So my warning to him would be, and everyone else, choose my words carefully and don't use inflammatory headlines, because that's not what our football club needs right now. So, I'm not a happy man. Nobody would be. We've had a terrible 2025. We've won, I don't know, a couple of games at home all year long. It's not been good. Last Christmas, we were a couple of wins away from the playoffs when we played Burton and lost at home, and Puckett got injured. And really, since then, it's not been good. So we lost to Bolton. Go back, obviously, we know about the Lincoln game. We played the Aston Villa teenagers on Tuesday. We're 2-0 down to a bunch of teenagers. I'm just smashing my head against a brick wall. We have a player like Lisby, who we brought to the club in the summer. Our scouting for Lisby can play wide left, can play wide right, but we see him predominantly as a striker. And that's what we have to develop him as. That was what our scouting told us. And, you know, he's not in the team to start. All those, and he'd done really well in spits and spats coming off the bench. So, and then he comes on, creates a hat trick. You got JD, who plays right wing back eventually. He's the best crosser we've got at the football club. So he's got that in him, and a terrific talent. Hat trick of assists. Lisby scores 3 goals. We get out of it. So I'm already worried then. You know, like I'm expecting us to beat the Villa kids 5 or 6-0. So, you know, but fair play to the manager. He reacted and made the changes he needed to in the second half. Then we go to Bolton, and I'm expecting to see us be better than what happened against Lincoln. We're 2-0 down after 20 minutes. It's like a broken record that's just repeated. So at that point, I'm just, to be fair, they didn't. And that there are the things you look for when people talk about changing managers. Have the team quit? Has the dressing room quit? You know, you hear all those old sayings in life. As the manager lost the dressing room? As you know, they didn't quit. They could have quit. You're playing Bolton. It's at a Bolton home game. There's a big crowd. They're doing okay, Bolton. They're a dangerous team. They haven't lost at home. Probably played our best football for ages for 20 minutes. There's a 20-minute period from, I think, the 25th minute to the 45th minute. We played really well. Should have scored 3 goals. Missed some really easy chances again. What's killing us is we're shit in both boxes. We're not clinical in the attacking box. Teams against us are really clinical. It only takes, if you have 4 shots on goal against us at the moment, you're scoring 2 or 3 goals. That's not improved. So those 2 areas are not improving. So you can put that down to coaching, training, whatever. So that's frustrating. You score a goal before halftime. We then miss a striker misses a header from 5 yards out. Really good ball by Mendy in. Should have scored. It should be 2-2. You go in at half. Then I'm sitting there at halftime thinking, actually, I think we're going to win this game. I think we're going to turn the corner here. We're looking good. We're playing well. You know, the players look like they've got it. We've made those 2 early mistakes, stupid mistakes again. And then we come out in the second half. We don't have a shot on goal. We don't have a shot on goal. Like, and that right there is my frustration. You've come back into it. You've gone in at halftime. You're thinking, come out in the second half. Their goalie's going to have to be Gordon Banks. Like, this is going to be like the Alamo. Like, we're going to basically. We were in it. We were okay. We were probably the better team for the first 15 minutes of the second half. Then from the 60th minute to the 86th minute, we ran out of puff. We didn't look like we had a wank in us. And that is concerning. Like, that happens far too often. And then the last 8 minutes, Lisby came on, you know, and he looked energetic, and we looked, you know, but again, we didn't create any drama. We didn't create any balls off the line and, you know, whatever. So that frustrated me. I want people to be clear about this. There's a certain amount of loyalty that goes into this as well. I've known this manager for 20 years. I know his staff. I know what he's thinking. So, of course, I have to be honest with him and ask the question, because this has gone on too long. Like, I can talk about us being a top 6 side. I can talk about us being a different animal. I can talk about us whatever else. And people can keep, you know, having a go at our players and talking about recruitment and talking about whatever else. We've got a good squad. We've got a squad that should not be bottom of the league. We've got a squad that should not have won 2 games in 11. And we've got a squad that should have scored more than 7 goals. I look at the data, I see the stuff, but we're not playing well enough. The football's not exciting enough. It's bland. And whilst you can go and nick a win at Plymouth, and you can be all those things about being tough, resilient, whatever, I don't want to see us play like that every week. So, you know, I have an honest conversation with my manager after the game, and I just said, look, I need to know, you know, like, have you got this? Because you need to be honest with me.
Yeah.
Like, we've got an international break coming up.
Is he giving up?
No, yeah, I just, you know, can he do it? You know, it's almost like me throwing it to him, saying, like, we've got an international break coming up. You love this football club. You know, I'm not saying I'm firing you, but I need you to talk to me. And his response was, we're there. You'll see it. We will win games now, and we're ready. And he said the dressing room's ready, and it's not perfect at the moment. He said, but let me have this 2 weeks. Not let me have as in keep my job. Like, you know, let me go to work the next 2 weeks.
In this time, you know.
Yeah, let me work on the training ground. Let me do my best work. You'll see it when we come out of the break, and you'll see it not in 1 game or 2 games. You'll see it, but you'll also see it stylistically. So, and that's all I want. Winning's great, and everyone's about bottom of the league and all of that. Look, I want to enjoy what I watch. I want to enjoy what I watch. I want Peterborough to have 20 shots a game. I don't care if we lose games 4-3. You know, I don't want a game over after 20 minutes. I don't want a hill to climb. I want us having a go. I want us basically like getting our crowd back. And our crowd stayed with us for as long as they could. But I can't even blame them for losing their moxie and losing their belief, because it's been a horrendous 2025. So, and we fill out, we get a good crowd in at home, and we do what we did against Lincoln. We have to get our fans something to cheer, and not just in one game. We have to give them belief. Our staff deserve that as well, because our staff at the main ground are having a hard time because of what the product's like on the pitch.
Was as a fan, when you lose consistently, you turn up to a game thinking we're going to lose this before it started.
Right.
Flip side, when you're winning all the time, you turn up to a game thinking, we're going to go and win this.
So it's mindset.
It's
mindset. So 10 months ago, 11 months ago, I said, we go into December, we're not great, we're not wonderful, we're a little bit icky. We can hammer Cambridge, we can hammer Blackpool. We did all that last year, and then we'd lose shitty games. But we were thereabouts. We were like 9 points out of the playoffs. We were close. We were in the race, and that was going into December. And we just all of a sudden just shut down. And since then, all momentum's gone. But the one beautiful thing is, you see it happen in one way, it can happen in the other way. So that's nothing that wins in style, and playing good open football can't change. So, my manager's asking me to trust him. I have to give him the benefit of the doubt based on our history together. The Darragh from 10 years ago, he'd have been gone at halftime against Villa. But the Darragh now has to be, I'm running a football club that I can't just react because we're losing football games. There's more to it than that. So, and yes, I hear it in the interviews when the BBC, keep saying to him about, well, it's a new squad, and you've only really had them 5 games. No, that's not the truth. We had a good enough squad not to be in the bottom 5 or not win a game in 7 games at the start of the season. I don't care what people think. We did. Do you know what I mean?
You've had 6 weeks since you brought the majority of those players on board.
Yes,
so
exactly.
They shouldn't be running out of steam after 60 minutes.
Right.
They've had 6 weeks.
There you go. So we can stop talking about it's a new squad, okay? They're in the building 6 weeks now. So it's not a new squad. It's a squad that's been together, and it's a squad capable of winning games. It's a squad capable of putting better football on, but the football's not good either. So those things have to marry up. And I'm positive coming out of the break, that's what will happen. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But at the end of the day, the manager is big enough and bold enough to know it can't go on forever, and he's honest enough to know me. So let's see how they react coming out of the international break. I know the players have his back. I know the dressing room's behind him. I know that they all want the same thing. There isn't people basically throwing temper tantrums. There isn't people, in the corners basically whispering. There ain't players
agents coming to you saying that.
No, there's always going to be agents doing that. Agents, that's their life. Agents like to, create mischief. I've had that for the last 5 weeks, not just the last week. Like, I've had agents of managers in jobs in League Two coming to me constantly, and it's just I find it repulsive, if I'm honest with you. So, if that happens, that's when I would reach out and do whatever, but stop coming to me. Like, when my manager's in a job, I have a lot of respect for him. I think it's the wrong thing. But the one thing is, I have trust in him, and I still trust him. So he and I will know. And hopefully that's a long time away. And we come out of the break and we play. And I want to be positive. I don't want to just be downbeat all the time. We're losing too many games. We're giving away too many goals. But most importantly, we're not playing well enough. We're not creating enough goals, chances. That has to change. We have the personnel. So now him, Scarfy, Rooster, the sports science staff have to figure it out, have to up the intensity, have to use these 2 weeks basically like a pre-season to absent. And I spoke to him this morning, and I have to say, it's the best I've heard him for a long time. He's very clear of thought. There's clarity there. He sees it, and that is refreshing and good to hear. I got a bit of a pep in my step after talking to him today. That was good. And don't get me wrong, we've had rows. Like we had a row before the Villa game the other day. Like, you know what I mean? And afterwards as well. You know what I mean? So I don't want fans thinking I'm a soft touch or whatever else. Trust me, I'm as unhappy as they are, and in an aggressive way. And that's probably the most aggressive I've been in a long time.
What do you row about?
Simple shit. Simple shit. Like, why is the best crossing right back we have playing as a centre back instead of right wing back? Mm-hmm. Why is a player not in a team, who's been in squads, done really well, over a player that's a 10 playing as a striker instead of him, and then that player comes on and scores a hat-trick. It's not that I'm trying to say I was right. I don't want to be right. But like simple shit where I go, like, can you see the forest for the trees? Because they're simple things. We row about like football shit sometimes. We row about, he'll see a game differently from me.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's healthy, because you want to have those debates. We have a really good relationship like that. They're not rows, they're disagreements. They're not like, oh, you bitch, I'm hanging up on you or whatever.
Well, if they were, you wouldn't have the relationship you do where
yeah. Or I'll say, like, I feel maybe characters are getting chosen over playing talent at times. And I'll be like, do your staff not challenge you? And he'll go, they're not yes men. And we'll have all those conversations. Don't think we're not having deep conversations. We have really deep conversations. And again, don't anyone pick headlines from this. Like, be honest about what I just spoke about. I have immense love and respect for my manager. He's the best manager I've ever had. So, of course, I'm giving him a lot more leeway than I would any other manager that would be in this job. Any other manager in this job would be long gone. So but this is a guy that I still believe is a brilliant manager. I still believe is tactically good. Still believe wants to play great football. Still believe loves this club and has the best, at heart for this football club. Yes, absolutely. You can get away with that for so long, and he knows that. And I think that's really, like, I can't live off promotions and what we did 3 years ago. Sports science staff can't live off what we did 3 years ago, what worked and what was great, and we looked fit and we were in the playoffs, and now we don't look fit. And I keep saying that to the staff. You can't keep going back to, we did this 3 years ago and this was great. You have to move with the times. So, it's honest conversations have been had. But most importantly, we're talking. Communication is key. It's when you stop speaking is when, the shit hits the fan. And I know there's a large part of people want me to shift in. And I know a large part want me gone and all the usual crap and whatever else. I get all of that, but at the end of the day, I have to make the decision. And, I have to do what I think is right and what's in my gut instinct. And my gut is that I have to trust my manager and let him go to work and have this,
as long as you possibly can.
Correct, this mini preseason, and if that changes, everyone will know. But like I said, managers with better records have lost their jobs, and that's happened. But it always does with an international break around the corner. So anyway, that's enough about Peterborough. Our in other news, which is promising, is that our 21 or under 18s are flying. They hammered Norwich 4-1 in the Premier League Cup the other day. Young Bolu with more goals. The week before he scored a hat-trick. I forget who they beat. I'm so excited about our academy. Our 21s just played Barnsley today.
I was going to say, I think they just won, didn't they? Because I was following
they won 4-3. Yeah, they won 4-3. To be fair, Gustav and Lisby played up front, and they both scored.
Gustav scored.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so that was nice to see. So, and a few of the injured players are I'm getting news that I was speaking to Physio Sports Science. Rio finally is back in the grass next week. That's our left back who has had such a tough time. So I'm so, God touch wood, I'm happy for him that goes to plan. Sam Hughes is back in 3 weeks. Declan apparently he's been in the gym and he's back on the grass next week. God, we need him. But since Keane's gone down, our wing options off the bench has just been. And who else? And Keane's not going to be 4 months. It looks like it'll be the end of Christmas when he's back, because the operation went really well. So they are promising things. So I have to take solace in those things. The hat-trick Lisby scored, the hat-trick of assists from JD last week. I don't care who the opposition was. I'm telling you now, Lisby's a player. It was really funny. I was one of the podcasts out there, whatever else. I heard them mention 3 times that technically he's not great, but he scored a hat-trick. And then when you watch that,
hat-trick, wasn't it?
But you got these geniuses saying technically he's not great, which always makes me fucking laugh. But but it was a perfect hat-trick, left foot, right foot header. And he also had a goal disallowed that I think should have been onside. So, the one thing I wouldn't have said is technically he's got issues, because it's one of his strong things. And we had that early on when we were scouting him. By the way, his brother's a player as well. He's at Colchester. They're like twins. So, he's doing well there. Yeah. Shout out to the Colchester fans. So anyway, enough about Peterborough. Let's talk about your comeback. You did what we couldn't do. You came back from the dead.
And, with it being a Thursday afternoon, I got to watch it on mute as I was in a business meeting on my phone. So I didn't get to watch, the full game.
You're
when you exactly. I was like, it was right there, like in front of me. Going 2 down, Rotherham typically a bit of a bogey team for us. I thought, well, that's that one. Game's over. But this team, again, we talk about that they keep on going, and brought it back to 2-1, equalized 2-2 the last 10 minutes.
I knew it. The minute I had it on my Sky thing while I was working, and I saw the goal, and I was like, I had to go and do something, and I could have bet the house that Bradford got back in the game, such as you've got now me believing. In your team. It's like knew it was happening.
And we had, countless one-on-ones that we fluffed. I mean, I really think, as Graham said afterwards, it was, even though we came back from 2 down, it's 2 points lost rather than 1 point gained.
Oh, wow. He's talking like that.
Yeah. So I think he was frustrated with the fact that it was only 2-2. I mean, you're never disappointed when you come back from 2-0 down to 2-2. But on the other hand, as we kind of alluded to, then we're going into every game right now thinking we should win this game. Like, why shouldn't we win this game? And part of me is worried about the international break.
Okay.
Kind of breaking the momentum. But on the other hand, I think we're carrying a lot of knocks, cuts, and bruises and things that it's probably going to be good just to to get some full fitness back in some of those players. I mean, he talked about yesterday, I think it was, that there's no break for anybody. We'll just be as kind of aggressive as they always are in training.
Is he giving them any time off?
I don't think so.
Wow.
I think he's about like, this is what's got us to where we are. Let's keep going.
Love it. I would go the other way. I wouldn't. Would I give them a Sunday off each weekend? Yes, but I wouldn't.
I'm sure they've had their regular time off, but
I wouldn't be giving them 2, 3, 4 days off. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's not like see you on Friday or something. Go take a week off.
No. Unless I had a group that was riddled with flu, whatever, and I didn't want to make excuses, but leading up to the Lincoln game, we had COVID in the camp. And again, it sounds like an excuse, but we lost like 5 players to COVID during that week. And I can't believe even COVID's still floating around. But and my wife was like, "What? You're testing for COVID?" And I'm like, "Fuck that."
You're not giving them a shot. That's what's going on.
Don't you start with that shite. Anyway, so like if you're battered and bruised or you've got illness in the camp, I would say, well, maybe clear the decks for 3 or 4 days, particularly if you're flying up the table. But I like the attitude your manager has of let's get them in every day. You know, that's good.
Just kind of keep it going. And so it feels, because the game was on a Thursday and because of international break as well, so we've had our game postponed like you had your game postponed.
Yeah.
It means we're not playing again until the 17th, maybe, something like that. So it just feels like it's a big gap.
So you're stressed. You're going to come out the other side of the break a different team than one that went into it.
I'm looking for a glass half empty. What's going to be really
Bradford fan?
Yeah, this train.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Who are you playing?
So let's see who have we got when we get back. We have Everton under 21s, and then Barnsley at home is the next home game. So that'll be another Yorkshire derby, another pretty much close to a sellout. I think Barnsley have sold all their tickets already.
Wow.
I mean, Valley Parade is rocking at the moment. It's such an amazing sight to see. They've done such a good job in cleaning it up, and just touches like putting the name on top of the Kop and doing the new seats, and everything kind of contributes to the fact that you're proud of your home. And then we do a really good job with getting flags out there and good atmosphere. And you think about even a couple of years ago. This is what you said before. Things can turn on a dime. A couple of years ago, you might have sold 14,000 season tickets, but 6,000 of them were showing up. And it was just such it's so depressing. Just seeing Valley Parade so empty. And here we are, 18 months later.
You're filling the place every week.
It's just really great to see. You want it to continue forever, You know that football is cycles and everything, so you enjoy it when you can. But,
exactly. Yeah. And that's what I was trying to explain to someone the other day. I remember, I was speaking to someone and saying Phil Wallace a few years ago during COVID, when we voted to shut the season down. I think Stevenage were like kicked out of the league. Mm-hmm. They lost their place in League Two, and then I think, if I'm right, a club couldn't come up from National League, and they ended up getting a reprieve. They got a reprieve, I believe. And look at Stevenage now; they're top of League One. So things change quickly, and a big credit to Stevenage for the turnaround.
100%. I mean, as much as we've done well, they're above us and they've got a game in hand. So, they've done
flying.
even better.
They're flying. Fair play to the manager, to Leon, who runs it for Phil. They are having the time of their lives. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, things change in football very quickly. When you look at that, and unfortunately, when you're on the other side of that, the short memories,
does it?
all those things. Yeah. So look, we have to flip the switch. We have to, get. I'm not saying get our fans back, because they've been magnificent through a really shit period, but we've got to give our fans more. We've got to give them something to be excited about. There's too much. We're giving outside influences too much chance to be constantly negative and hammering, and there's too much of that going on. There's too much people not celebrating, but it's like too much talking points where the team's crap, the this is crap, the recruitment's crap, the manager's crap, the owner's crap. When you're losing football games, that's what happens. And that's where we have to flip that and win 3, 4, 5, 6 games now. We haven't done that for a long time. We really have to flip the narrative and get ourselves going into Christmas where there's enthusiasm again for our football club. So that's really important.
And when you come back, you've got Burton away and then a couple of home games, don't you? So,
look, we I'm sick of talking about the games we're playing and we should beat this and we should beat that. At the end of the day, whoever we play the next 3, 4 games, we have to create a lot of chances. We have to win a lot of games and we have to look like our old selves. That's the prerequisite, not just winning. All right, not just nicking a couple of. We have to look like ourselves.
And 1-0.
No, and clean sheets and dig in and give up possession and have 3 shots all game or whatever else is. We can't play like that. I'm sorry. And we brought in better defenders and we brought in all this experience and we're still conceding shit goals. So we can't play like that. We have to flip it the other way and go, let's give them more to worry about than us. There was a time when people feared playing Peterborough because of the goals that came. Let's put the fear back on the table. If we put the fear back on the table, it gives us an extra 10% going into a game. Right now, you've got teams like Lincoln who have got no fear of playing Peterborough, where they flip the switch tactically on how they play against us. They know they can tickle our bellies and fucking beat us. Let's put fear back in them. For 20 minutes on Saturday against Bolton, there was genuine fear. Genuine fear that Bolton were going to give up a 2-0 lead. And we have to do that for 90 minutes. And we can't run out of steam after an hour. That can't happen. So that's a call to arms to everyone behind the scenes and the people who put all that together, that these 2 weeks.
Because the opposition will just play for that, won't they?
Correct.
60 minutes and then,
they'll run out of steam. Run out of steam. That can't happen. We're a professional football club with magnificent facilities, a lot of money gone into that. Our players should be absolutely primed. They should be machines. We've got size, we've got physicality, we've got technique, talent. Let's do our best now, work the next couple of weeks and turn that corner. Football, not results-wise, that's one thing we need. Football-wise, we need to start looking like an exciting team and a team that you would fear playing. Because as you said recently, you didn't fear coming to our place. So we need to put that fear back on the table. And
I do fear coming to your place every year, the last 5 years during this podcast.
And that's been the best thing of my ownership and all the time, good, bad, or indifferent, that people feared the goals we could score against them. Even when we were in the champ, people feared that Peterborough would score goals and are dangerous. And if you didn't do your job, if you didn't switch on, they could beat you and beat you well. So I want to see that happen again.
Well, let's move on to the Premier League and kind of go down the leagues a little bit, where we have new leaders. So your weekend didn't get any better.
I watched it right afterwards. I watched Liverpool shit the bed again in the
last minute, but in the other direction this time.
Second game in a row. Game, they lost to Palace, 97th minute. They lost to Chelsea, 96th minute. Liverpool are poor at the moment. They're poor. They're poor to watch. They're poor. I think when you saw the first 5 games they won, they were poor then. The fullbacks are a problem. Mo Salah's a big problem. And the £100 million problem is Wirtz trying to get him in the team that maybe, I don't know why we signed him, because it looks like the way we play, he's not fitted to the style we play. So there are more questions than answers at the moment, but Slot's a good manager. This indifference and way we're playing and issues will not last. But I worry about now, where I was confident they'd be up there for the title. They have to get Isak going. They have to. I'm not sure they're going to get Wirtz going. Maybe just save him for home games in the Champions League, against the have-nots that you should beat. Save him for the League Cup games. Save him for that. Go back to the midfield you had last year. Stop playing Soboslai as a right back. give the confidence to Frimpong or Bradley, who was poor against Chelsea. You're the right back. You get in the slot. Same at left back. The defenders need to have a word with themselves. Unfortunately, Allison again, because he's got hamstrings like noodles. He's gone again. He always does every year. I didn't love the kicking from the new goalie who spent 30 million quid, and I'm not sure the goalie is great with his feet, which is odd to say that in today's day and age.
That's table stakes, isn't it, these days for a keeper?
Yeah. Watching him against Chelsea, I'm like, defeat. Salah is a shadow of himself. He's just, the biggest criticism you could give Slot is that I don't care how good a player's been for you historically. If they're not doing it, sub them. Yeah. Sub them. You've got enough talent now across your squad in wide areas. Mo Salah doesn't get to play badly for 97 minutes.
That's always hard, isn't it? Because you know what he's capable of. So you're kind of waiting for him to produce something you know he's capable of.
I get it.
He's not demonstrating the ability to do that right now.
Of course, and he's on the pitch and he'll get late penalties and he'll do that and he could turn in a second, but he's not playing well. Maybe the challenge to him is needed that, you're not guaranteed to play 90 minutes. You're not guaranteed to start. He's not playing well. And maybe the other thing you'd say about Liverpool is they never really got a strong alternative on the right side to play there. To give him competition in his last 2 years of his contract where he's older and he's not going to be as effective. You could play Chiesa there, you could play certain players, but he's not playing well. So the challenge to Slot will be, how do you reignite Mo Salah? He's a magnificent player and he won't play badly forever. But in the moments he is playing badly, you can't let him away with it. And he's not even doing the work defensively.
Now, I'm not saying this about Mo Salah specifically, but is there once you've won something, is the desire to win it again?
No. I think there's a lot of new players. It's practically a new squad. I think you can't throw at those players that they climbed the mountain and they got fat and lazy and complacent because they won the first 5-6 games of the season. No, I honestly think you've lost Alexander-Arnold. Robertson's nowhere near the left back he was. You've got new full-backs. One of them, you're not sure if he's a right winger or a right full-back. You've got midfield problems where you don't know how to get Wirtz in the team, but you've got to play him from the start because you've spent 120 million on him. You've got a number 9 issue where the 9 you chased is nowhere near fit. The other number 9 is hit and miss. He's good. He had a good start. He's not been great the last few games. And you got your best player in the team miles off it. Then you got Van Dijk compensating for Kanate next to him, who's playing like half the level he was playing last year. So you've got all those things going on, and then you lost your goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. So Slot will get through it. I just don't think Arsenal are going to slip up too often. I look at the fixtures. They've had a lot of tough fixtures. And every time I look at an Arsenal result, not watching the game, I just know they're going to win. They're that kind of team at the moment. And they're not like the Arsenal of old. They're different. They don't give away goals. They don't concede goals. And, Man City are dangerous. So I just think it's going to be really tough for Liverpool to repeat. The only way Liverpool can repeat what they did last year is they got to click after the international break, start scoring a lot of goals again to give them confidence to keep clean sheets. The problem they've had is they're keeping games too close. They're not taking chances, and the defense isn't good enough to keep tight games. It's just the way it is. But when they come out of that and start winning 2-3, 4-0, it'll give them confidence. Slot will turn it around. I'm convinced, but I'm just not sure they're going to win the title. So
there's a few feel-good kind of stories as you look at after the first 7 games. No more than Bournemouth being 4th, a couple of points off the top.
No surprise.
Such a great start for them.
I spoke to their assistant manager in the summer. Really great guy. And just because I was doing my own research on training and not coaching, but the fitness side of things. And I looked at Bournemouth. It was one of those teams where they changed a lot of players, but it doesn't affect the results. They're high intensity. Yes, they have a lot of injuries, but they play a certain style. It's just non-stop pressing, high intensity. And it blew my mind when he gave me their training schedule. Blew my mind. Like, I spent an hour on the phone writing down comments, notes, everything. Fed it back to my manager, my sports scientist, because I always like to see what other teams do. The same with Birmingham, same at Newcastle. So I did like 5 clubs. I wanted to know, did they have 2 days off a week? Did they train 7 days a week? The stuff I found out about Bournemouth and how intense. I mean, what's a management setup that is? What a manager he is. The only thing I'll say about that is he will not be and don't kill me, Bournemouth fans, he's not going to be there very long if he keeps doing what he's doing, because it's like, we're going to sell your whole back 4. Yeah, no problem. We're going to be 4th in the Premier League by the international break. Like what? And that just tells you it's not about playing personnel. It's about the manager and systems. And it doesn't matter who he buys, who he brings in, who he picks. The system's the same. The coaching's the same. It's consistent. And they can bring in 11 new players and they'll play exactly the same way. And the results are probably going to be the same.
Everyone just needs to know their jobs.
That's how good that manager is. Like, wow. And the word that kept getting used to me when I had that conversation was high stress intensity, even in training. They stress their players highly. And I love that. Like, I love it. So what Bournemouth are doing is magnificent. Sunderland have had a great start.
Yeah.
You know, the Premier League's like, it's crackers. Go into the Championship. Coventry. Palace had an unbelievable start.
Weekend, but
Unbelievable.
I'm happy to see Everton coming out of the years of, I know you talk about pain and, just flirting with relegation in the Premier League to us, as lower league teams is not necessarily a whole hurt of pain, but they went through a lot to get that stadium built. And so, I'm really happy to see that they're kind of coming out the other side.
I called it. I said Everton will be top 10 this year. Palace, as long as they have that manager, are going to be top 10. The biggest thing that Steve Parish will do, and Mark Bright and everyone behind the scenes, is to get him signed up in a new deal. They're going to have to write the biggest check they've ever written for a manager, and I'm sure they will, because as long as he's their manager, it'll be easy street for Palace. He is like one of the best managers. You look at him and the Bournemouth manager, outside the top 5 clubs, they're the 2 best managers in the Premier League. Phenomenal managers. You go to the Championship, and Coventry are my second favourite team. At the moment, are just scoring goals. They're like Peterborough, and I'm not trying to, compare from years ago where the results are just like goals galore. I love seeing that. And well done to Doug, to Frank, everyone there. Dino as well behind the scenes. They're just an absolute pleasure to watch. I've seen a couple of their games here on CBS, on a Saturday early mornings and stuff, and it's just a goal fest.
9 games, unbeaten, 27 goals.
Sensational. The football is delicious to watch. Absolutely delicious. So I'm hoping Doug gets his gift there and they get to the Premier League, not just because we'll earn money, but I really do hope for them they do it. So no, the champ is fascinating.
Yeah, I look kind of down there, and of course the 2 Sheffield teams struggling at the bottom. Sheffield United still, I think they lost at the weekend, despite Chris Wilder coming back in, and is that? I think they've lost a couple since he came back.
They've won 1 and lost 3, I think, but I think he's got the international break. I think you'll see a different Sheffield United out the other side of that. So I've got no doubt that Sheffield United will not be a bottom 8 team by the time January comes. So Wilder knows what he's doing. He's a very adept manager. So I wouldn't be worried if I were their fans. Wednesday you'd worry about because of all the other reasons to worry, but you wouldn't worry about them. I think Wrexham as well will, come out of the international break a lot stronger. The Championship's fascinating. When you look at, Coventry, Middlesbrough, those teams that are up there, and then the Premier League teams that have the Premier League money aren't firing on all cylinders, are they?
It's such a mismatch. When I look at the table so far, you've got, clubs like Blackburn, Norwich down the bottom there, Southampton only in 17th, Wrexham and Birmingham, who, used to kind of certainly having their own way, and Birmingham, of course, walking it last year, found that it's a big jump when you get into the Championship from League One.
Massive financial gulf, massive. No matter how wealthy you are in League One.
In fact, what's always interesting to me is like when you look at who's promoted the year before, who's the team that started the best in the new season? And sometimes that's a little surprising because you'll get teams like a Birmingham who walked away with it last year. You think, yep, those are going to be the best equipped to start the new season. Looking at the table here, it's Charlton who have had a good start from the.
But they spent well. They spent well. Charlton recruited and spent really well. Like, big credit to them, to Rodwell and co there, because I think they put together a pretty good team. QPR are doing well. There's Bristol City, I think, have had an okay start as well. No, they're doing well.
Yeah, they're 10th at the moment.
Yeah, they're kind of like dangerous.
And another one to shout out because, I always shout them out while they got Paul Heckingbottom and Stewart as the manager and assistant is Preston. And Preston so often, will start and they're kind of struggling from the beginning. And they've just had a really strong start as well. They're up there in 4th so far after 9 games.
Yeah. Very surprising, like the top of that league. So, and then forget about talking about League One. Let's talk about League Two.
Talked about League One enough.
Correct.
League Two, we have, I think Walsall went back to the top. So after their problems last year, they've started 25 points from 11 games.
Yeah, fair play to Matt and his staff there and everything else. They've, obviously everyone's going to question them if they've got a 12-point lead going into January, but I don't think they'll make those same mistakes again.
I'm sure there's some lessons learned from last season.
Yeah, they're very strong. I think MK Dons had a really important win at the weekend. I think they were under pressure as well.
Yeah.
Were there any other surprising results?
So as I look at the table, Newport struggling down there in at the bottom spot. We had Cheltenham got their win after bringing Steve Cottrell back, and who else there? Grimsby still doing well. They're in third place to go on with the cup run. Actually, talking for Salford, I saw something about Salford talking about changing their colours back to orange from red because they felt that when they used to be orange and they changed them to red when the class of 92 bought them, and now maybe it's time for them to go back and forge their own identity again. So it's maybe that you talked about Gary Neville earlier, maybe that experiment is kind of over.
Don't put a Union Jack in those shirts, whatever you
do. What else we got in League Two? Gillingham, no surprise that they're still up there. When I look at strugglers,
special shout out to Gareth Ainsworth. I think he's taken time off due to heart conditions. So good luck to him. But they, hope that all goes well because they were flying obviously before he left or whatever. Yeah. So I presume he's not, why he's recovered
forever, had they?
Yeah. So I'm sure they'll be strong when he comes back again.
And then just quickly going over to the National League, after 12 games, Rochdale top of the pile,
phenomenal.
And lost 2.
Phenomenal.
So a great start.
Phenomenal. Whatever they're doing there, I really thought it was going to be, York, Carlisle. Shout out to Southend because we got corrected by one of their fans recently. Scunthorpe are the big surprise story. They've been flying and doing really well. Boreham Wood, absolutely upsetting the odds. I think they're high up there as well. But Rochdale really is a surprise story. So their fans have had some recent shit to deal with. So delighted to see them doing well.
You look at some of those teams. You got Rochdale, obviously Forest Green have been in the EFL for a number of years at this point. Carlisle, Scunthorpe. I'm really happy to see Scunthorpe back up there, top end of the National League and competing. Halifax, York, Southend. A lot of history there. And also shows once you fall through that trapdoor, it's no easy.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous. Yeah. So no, fair play to them. Have we got any questions from anyone before we?
We had one question, which was from a Bradford fan. There were rumours of an American sponsorship coming to City soon. I think Ryan had talked about that. There's a back of shirt sponsor will be an American company next year, but didn't say who. But the question was, could you kind of ask Darragh what that brings to the club? He wants to know who the sponsor is if we have any connections. Well, I don't know who the sponsor is. Not me. It's not you.
Did you get Bud Light or something like that? I know you lefties love a bit of Bud Light. I'm
KFC or something to go with the chicken meme.
Oh God, that stupid thing. I don't know. I mean, obviously with me about to do my citizenship, I guess I can be now a US owner, right?
Yeah,
so
could be my little small business.
Yeah, you could be involved. Yeah, as a sponsor, you get no freebies. Maybe you should throw some money Bradford's way. Do you know what I mean? So who knows? But look, everyone needs more sponsorship. So we've got terrific sponsors who've also all suffered like us. You know what I mean? While we haven't been winning. So that's interesting.
I find that it could open up new markets. Like if you start to working with companies from overseas. That
I think now, and I've said this before. And I was on the owners group, and we have an owners call on Thursday. A lot of us owners are even thinking about banding 10 grand in each to do a bit more marketing for the US side of things. Because obviously, Plymouth has, there's a lot of clubs in League One have got American roots. You talk about Birmingham, Wrexham last year. You look at Rob at Reading. You look at some of the other, owners in there or whatever, like myself, all now being American citizens. So you'll have American ownership in the EFL, in League One. And we want CBS not just worrying about Wrexham and Birmingham and whatever. Like, hey, there's a few others over here as well, So I think that's important. I think, the world is your oyster. There's a lot more countries than just the UK.
I also feel having the game. So here in the States, we have a selection of games that are on Paramount Plus through CBS deal. And that's a real positive for us that they're there, but nobody knows about them. So it's like, that's the next thing is like, how do we inform people and market that actually exists,
right?
that you then get the view.
Exactly right. Like I have the same package, so I'll always check. Peterborough's never on, obviously, and you know, but there are games. Basically, you get a load of championship games. You get a 7:30 in the morning game. You get a 12:30 game. You get a couple of 3 or 4 10 o'clock games, mainly championship, 1 or 2 in League One. But it's, you know, what I never understood about that with CBS. If I were CBS, I would say put them all on there. You have the rights to all of them. Like put them all on there. What are you waiting for? Just stick them all on there. Start getting Yanks to be, you know, to be attached to certain clubs and whatever else. And you know, and I'd be happy to do more PR and stuff in America.
Would it take away though from your ability to sell international season tickets?
No.
Like or is that such an immaterial revenue? That it doesn't really matter.
They have the rights to them all. Like, you know, CBS already have it. Like, put them all on there. Like EFL trophy games, every game should be on there. Like, just stick them all on. So no, I do. We need to lean in more to the States. It was just
why can we not have the League Cup? That's a whole new thing.
Exactly. I think the League Cup is on ESPN or Peacock. It's on one of the streamers.
We only have like 1 or 2 games, and so our Newcastle game was on, so I was able to watch the Newcastle game.
Right.
I was able to watch the early rounds because they block out. You know, I can't watch it through my international season ticket.
I don't pay attention to the League Cup. We're always knocked out in the first round of the League Cup, so it's irrelevant to that. Was there any Peterborough questions? Have they gone quiet on us as well?
No, they've gone quiet. I think those get fired to you on social media.
Yeah. Anyway.
Or should I say, they're in your mentions?
They're in my mentions, yeah. Anywho. All right, well, listen, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and appreciate you, you know, the viewership ticking up, and I know our YouTube channel's taken off a lot more. We're getting like 3 times the amount of people now on YouTube, you know, than we have done in the past. So that's good. The growth is really kicking into YouTube, you know, with our shows and stuff like that. So it's all good.
Yeah, people like the videos.
They do.
So with the international break next week, we might skip things, but we'll be back either next week or once we get back from the international break.
Exactly.
But of course, keep those questions coming in. You can do that anywhere where you see us, you know, on social accounts, DM us, or email them over contact@hardtruthfootball.com. All right, until next time.
Bye, folks.
Have a great week and talk soon.